Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we're going to continue our mod highlight series. However, in regards to this mod, we will actually have to make a series of videos, purely because the mod we're covering today and possibly for the next few videos to come is absolutely massive. This is OVN Lost Factions, a mod which adds in a multitude of new playable factions, races, and so much more. You can't even call this DLC sized, as the mod itself is so absolutely massive that it's bigger than the average race pack. Because of the mod's sheer size, we'll have to dedicate a few videos to it. Each video will highlight a different race, with our first highlight video being on the nation of Araby, a race I've always wanted not only in Total War Warhammer, but also to be made playable in Warhammer Fantasy Battles. There are 3 factions for Araby in this mod, so we're going to check them all out and show anything of interest. So let's not waste any more time and jump right in. We'll start with Sultan Jafar and his forces, which begin at the coast of Araby, surrounded by Bretonnian and Tomb King factions, all of which are potential enemies. You'll notice instantly there is a fresh new look with this faction, new units, new model types and so on, but don't worry, we'll get to that in a little bit. But before anything, let's look at what I like to look at first, the construction tab. Here you can more or less see the absolute amount of work which has been put into this mod. Not only do you have new buildings all around, as the faction itself has been created from the ground up, but you can also see that each of those buildings also have fresh new unique units. You have a complete roster in terms of units and armies with this mod, where everything looks and feels like it belongs in Araby. Next we can look towards the technology tree. It's stylized, nothing too big, in fact I think it's a bit small for my liking, however everything there works as intended. The tree itself is stylized in its own unique way, very much like every other race which has been implemented officially. There are even certain technologies that you'll need to work to unlock. Everything here is what you can expect. Some research focuses on your cities and settlements themselves, whilst others boost up your army capabilities. But all in all, everything as far as I've played works. Now there are 2 vanilla baseline mechanics making an appearance here. Firstly, slavery, which makes sense for Araby if you read into their lore deep enough. They were known to be traders and slavers in the lore, hence why not only do we get slavery, but also the Grand Bazaar, a copy in its own stylized form of the mechanic first implemented for the Tomb Kings and then later on for the Dwarfs. The mechanic works as expected. Having a certain amount of gold and also some special resources will allow you to acquire certain items. The more resources and gold you'll need to spend, the better the item, and this makes sense for a trading nation. It is important to note that with Sultan Jafar's faction, you have 2 starting settlements, one at the coast of Araby, which is where you will start with your camera, and the other in the Grand Desert of Araby itself. Both of your settlements are relatively close to each other. However, the second settlement is quite undefended, and it can be that whilst you're dealing with the Bretonnians, another faction could come and take it from you, so you might either want to plan ahead in an effort to protect your settlement, or just demolish the buildings and get the cash. Jafar's faction effects are as follows. You're immune to desert attrition, which can be expected. You will benefit from an increased Winds of Magic reserve from all armies, and a very high trade income bonus. However, there are some negatives, the first being a minor diplomatic relations to all the Bretonnian factions which can be found within Araby. The second negative is also a debuff to diplomatic relations with the Tomb Kings. This is a little bit higher, and obviously because of these 2 negatives you'll have to plan ahead. You are in a territory which surrounds you with your potential enemies, so plan ahead before you get destroyed. The character's stats are on screen right now. He's pretty well balanced, bear in mind that his low armor is due to the fact that he's a spellcaster, so don't leave him alone or else he'll get ripped to shreds. The character's blue and red skill trees are pretty generic, but that's what can be expected from any lord, official or otherwise. Spell-wise, he has a mix of different laws of magic, even some spells added in through a custom law only available to the spellcasters of Araby. His higher skills themselves, the more unique ones, focus around buffing up his units, buffing up slave trade and so on, with his unique items being there to drastically buff up his spellcasting ability. With his battle effects and both his unique items, the Sultan himself can benefit from an extra 66 winds of magic. But now let's look at the second playable faction, that belongs to Fatandira. Here you'll find yourself in the far east of Nehekara, a land populated by many nomadic tribes which work alongside the Tomb Kings, and you'll find this with this faction too. Geographically, you'll find yourself surrounded by a potential varied amount of different enemies, Skaven, vampire counts and orcs everywhere. Again, you'll begin with two different settlements, but these are relatively close to each other, so you really shouldn't have too much of a problem, especially early on, trying to link them both together. Though once again you could decide to abandon one completely. The added benefit to this faction is that you're also able to recruit some Tomb King units into your forces. Not a lot of them, but enough to be noticeable. You won't get them until mid-tier settlements, but they will still prove to be quite useful. The faction effects are as follows: immune to desert attrition, once again expected, enabling recruitment of certain Tomb King units, we've already discussed this, a debuff to diplomatic relations to all Bretonnian factions within the lands in the south. This in itself isn't too much of a worry, as you will not really see these factions, as it's more than likely that Cetra or Arkan will deal with them. But you will also notice you have diplomatic relation bonus with the Tomb Kings. This obviously can help you in terms of keeping one of your flanks secure, considering that you will already start out as military allies with the Tomb Kings of Numas. The character itself has pretty decent stats, all things considered. She is a ranged character however, so bear in mind that while fairly decent in melee combat, you'll want to keep her far and shooting as much as possible. Her campaign effects focus around higher casualty replenishment rate and a massive 25% ambush success chance, which could be fairly beneficial, especially early on. She also minuses the upkeep by 30% for all Araby and Nomad units. It's a pretty high reduction in all things considered. But now let's look at the third and final faction for Araby, that of the Golden Magus, a character which unfortunately we might never see officially implemented if they ever go about making Araby, due to the fact that he was unfortunately confirmed dead in the Vampire Coast trailer. You'll start very far away from the lands of Araby itself. You'll start instead in the Vampire Coast, which will give you a nice variety in terms of start positions. In terms of faction effects, they are as follows: a plus 50 diplomatic relations to the Pirates of Sartosa. Again, the minus 10 diplomatic relations with the southern-based Bretonnian factions, which in all honesty makes no sense to me here considering you're so far away. Immune to high seas attrition for all armies, which is obviously great, and income from raiding plus 50%, once again for all armies. The Golden Magus himself is also a pseudo-horde, very much so like the other Vampire Coast characters, a bit of a throwback to the Warhammer fantasy game Dreadfleet. Now bear in mind here, there are indeed a decent amount of buildings when in regards to this horde character. However, he has a very limited option in regards to actual recruitment. Don't expect to have this character moving on by himself without taking much territory, or else eventually you will run out of good units. Stat-wise himself, this character is quite squishy. I won't say anything else other than that, so make sure to keep him safe. He does have a bunch of spells from different laws of magic which make him very potent, but if he does get caught out, even by a basic character, he will get ripped to shreds. This faction itself benefits from a reduced upkeep for the flying carpets, genies and ifrits, so you can focus around more of a magic-based force with the golden Magus. Everything around him basically screams magic, so you can have a lot of fun with this. And take note that you do have two separate skills, one which focuses around giving yourself diplomatic relations with the forces of order, and the other one which focuses around chaos. It's your choice here who you want to be more friendly with, which I quite like. The element of choice is always really fun. One thing I forgot to mention, but thanks to the power of editing I can do so now, is that when you capture a lore-friendly location for those of Araby, you have the option of Jihad. So basically what this does is allows you to occupy the settlement, but will also give you a variety of different benefits. This will allow you to keep you consistently moving whilst in Araby in an effort to capture the territories that you want to once again reform your mighty nation. But now we'll look towards all the units implemented throughout this mod. As you can see here, we have a massive army, 40 units to be exact, and in all honesty we're actually missing some different types of hero loadouts and even some units. But the units themselves are regiments of renown, so I didn't think there was a point of actually showing them off. So whilst we're panning over all the different units and checking out their individual stats, you may want to pause as and where you think is needed so you can look over the stats a bit better. I want to talk about Araby in specific, rather than just talk about OVN in itself, because well, we've only covered one race. Everything for Araby is done immaculately well. It looks and feels like it would be something that Creative Assembly would come up with. Sure, there's a few visual issues here and there, for example the skin for the elephants, the necks for the camels and so on, but then again, you have to bear in mind that this is created from scratch. So it's been done incredibly well given the limitations that the modders have. Araby has always been one of these factions from OVN which plays extremely well. I've been playing Araby on and off every now and then, and I always find myself coming back to this faction. It's been done incredibly well, it's well balanced, the campaign feels very fluid, and the units look absolutely amazing, even with some minor visual issues. Now, I want to talk about the visual aspect of Araby through this mod itself. You see, Araby is represented extremely well, given the fact that not a lot of art or that much lore is actually here for Araby in terms from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, or any other supplements such as Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. But the faction itself has been interpreted in an absolutely great way, and this is the thing. Creative Assembly themselves said that there is currently no plans to create an official Araby pack, which I find rather disappointing. A lot of people think that it could be deemed insensitive. And I understand in a certain sense. If you go back well enough in the lore, you can realize that Games Workshop's original writers, yeah, they took a lot of liberty. However, it's not like Araby cannot be done tastefully well, like for example how everything looks and feels through OVN Lost Factions. I believe that Araby here is being interpreted in an absolutely stellar way, and it looks and feels like it should be done like this officially. Now, I'm not saying that Creative Assembly themselves should come up with a Araby faction and discredit all the stuff that the OVN team has done. That would be a very harsh way to basically say that your work is no longer needed, of course. I think that Creative Assembly should take inspiration from this mod if anything, with Games Workshop's blessing, of course. Now, you see, Araby might not be the biggest power in this point of the timeline where we're playing in Total War Warhammer. In fact, at this point, Araby is pretty much almost fully destroyed. They've got a few port cities here and there, but then again, they're not a superpower like they used to be. That's not to say that there's still not an important race and faction in the Warhammer fantasy world, and it would be nice to see some more human factions in the Warhammer fantasy world which aren't generic Empire or Bretonnia clones. Now, there might be hope in Warhammer 3, considering the fact that Old World, which is going to be the newest Warhammer Fantasy Battles game for Games Workshop, seems to be focused around the time of 3 Emperors, which is more or less the time around the Crusades, which for that, Araby is a major plot point in the lore. Well, they were the instigators, but you know what I mean, so it would be possible to see this being released as a DLC pack in the future. However likely or not, this mod itself scratches that itch. It's absolutely fantastic, and I recommend it for anyone who was curious about Araby. This is as close to the experience as we're going to get in Total War Warhammer for the foreseeable future. But with that being said, I will have a direct link to the OVN Factions mod in the description below, so if you want to check it out or check out all the other races, you can do so. I will also be doing mod highlights on all the other uniquely added races and factions as time progresses on this channel, and also bear in mind I will be linking to the part 1 of this mod. However, once you try to download this, it should prompt you to download all the others. If not, on the side of the Steam page, everything should be there. And once again, if you know of any mods that you'd like to see highlighted on this channel, or you'd just like to suggest a mod, you can do so in the comments below. Or may I suggest joining the official Great Book of Grudges Discord, which is in the description below, as it is much easier to get in contact with me through there. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.